As the day unwinds and the world outside softens into twilight, we embark on a journey not through bustling cities or grand battlefields, but into the quiet depths of memory and imagination. Tonight, we'll turn our attention to a figure whose name has resonated through millennia, a whisper carried on the winds of time. Homer, you might know him as the voice behind the epic tales of the Trojan War, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Yet, beneath the grand narratives of heroes and gods lies a more profound story, the story of a mind, a spirit, and the quiet shaping of human understanding. We won't dwell on the clamor of war or the thrill of adventure, but rather on the gentle unfolding of a creative soul, the patient weaving of words into tapestries of thought, and the subtle, enduring power of storytelling that has cradled generations through the ages. Imagine, if you will, the soft glow of a distant hearth, the faint scent of embers, and the comforting rhythm of a voice sharing tales that transcend time itself. As you settle into this moment, perhaps you feel the gentle weight of the day lifting from your shoulders, like a soft cloak slipping away. Imagine, for a moment, a time long, long ago, a time so distant it feels almost like a dream. It's a time, not of urgency, but of patient unfolding, where the rhythm of life was perhaps slower, more attuned to the rise and fall of the sun, the waxing and waning of the moon. And in this distant landscape, somewhere in the quiet corners of ancient Greece, a consciousness began to stir. We don't know the precise moment or the exact place, and that absence of detail allows us to imagine, to feel the quiet possibility of a life beginning, unburdened by the clamor of specific dates or locations. Think of the very first sensations, not sharp and vivid, but soft and indistinct, like the edges of a dream you can almost recall. Perhaps it was the gentle warmth of the sun on young skin, or the faint, murmuring sound of a distant sea. Life, in its earliest stages, is a quiet symphony of impressions, a delicate dance of discovery where each new sensation is absorbed without judgment, without the need for labels or names. This was the world Homer might have first encountered, not with the keen, dissecting eye of an adult, but with the open, receptive heart of a nascent spirit. There's a certain tranquility in this unknown, a peaceful space where imagination can wander freely, unconstrained by the demands of fact. We are simply present, observing the quiet emergence of a being who would in time shape the very narrative of human experience. Consider the feelings that might have stirred within such a young soul, not the grand emotions of heroism or despair, but simpler, more fundamental sensations, the comfort of closeness, the gentle hush of the world settling down for the evening, the soft sigh of a breeze passing through olive trees. It's in these quiet, foundational moments that the seeds of understanding are sown, not through dramatic events, but through the consistent, gentle presence of life itself. The world was a vast, mysterious cradle, offering its daily lessons not through grand pronouncements, but through subtle shifts in light. The faint scent of blooming jasmine, the distant, rhythmic sound of waves breaking on a shore. This was the quiet curriculum of early life, teaching patience, observation, and a deep, intrinsic connection to the natural world. The passage of time in these early years might have felt less like a ticking clock and more like the slow unfurling of a scroll, each day revealing a new detail, a new texture to the tapestry of existence. There was no rush, no pressing urgency to become someone or achieve something grand. Instead, there was the simple act of being, of absorbing, of allowing the world to imprint itself upon a receptive mind. Imagine the feeling of a cool evening, breeze after a warm day, a sensation so simple yet so profound in its comfort. These are the quiet moments that truly build a life, not the loud pronouncements, but the steady, consistent hum of presence. And as we drift further into this gentle narrative, allowing the quietness of Homer's beginnings to envelop us, consider taking a moment, if you feel so inclined, to softly engage with this space. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to gently like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And as you settle in, perhaps share in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is for you. Knowing that we share this quiet space across distances and moments can add another layer of peace to our journey together. For now, let the quietude of these beginnings, the soft unfolding of time, carry you gently onward. As the quiet of the first chapter settles around us, we drift forward, just a little, into the faint echoes of what might have been Homer's childhood. It wasn't a childhood filled with grand pronouncements or dramatic events, but rather a gentle unfolding, much like the slow opening of a flower at dawn. Imagine the world through young eyes, not yet burdened by the complexities of adult understanding. The sounds would have been softer, the colors perhaps richer, and the passage of each day a wonder in itself. You might sense the quietude of a morning before the full heat of the sun rises, when the air is still cool and holds the faint scent of damp earth and awakening blossoms. In this imagined infancy, the world was a canvas of sensation. Perhaps the gentle touch of a mother's hand, a soft lullaby sung under a starlit sky, or the rhythmic creak of a small boat rocking on calm waters. These aren't events that make it into history books, but they are the foundational whispers that shape a soul. They are the feelings of security, of being held, of simply existing in a space of gentle warmth. There's a profound peace in recalling these early, wordless moments, where understanding came not through language, but through empathy and quiet connection. Think of the comfort of being wrapped in a soft blanket, the world outside a distant hum, and within your own small space, a feeling of deep serenity as the child grew. Curiosity would have begun to stir, but not with the frantic energy of seeking, rather with the patient observation of a world revealing itself. You might imagine a small hand reaching out to touch the smooth bark of a tree, or an ear cocked to the distant bleating of sheep on a hillside. Life was a constant, gentle lesson, taught by the rustling leaves, the murmur of a stream, the silent sweep of a hawk across the sky. These experiences, absorbed without the conscious effort of learning, became the bedrock of a quiet wisdom, shaping an inner landscape rich with the nuances of the natural world. There's a subtle beauty in this kind of learning, a slow absorption, that feels less like effort and more like breathing. The people in this young life would have moved with a rhythm of their own, not hurried or stressed, but attuned to the cycles of their days. You might perceive the soft murmur of voices in a nearby dwelling, the gentle clatter of pottery, or the distant song of someone working in the fields. These were the sounds of community, not loud and overwhelming, but a soft, constant presence, a comforting backdrop to the unfolding of a young mind. In such an environment, the child would have learned the quiet power of presence, of simply being part of a larger, interconnected whole, without needing to stand out or make a grand statement. The feeling of belonging, quietly understood, would have been a gentle embrace. This period of early life was likely a time of slow incubation, where the seeds of storytelling and understanding were quietly sown. It wasn't about memorizing facts or mastering skills, but about internalizing the very essence of human experience. The quiet joys, the small sorrows, the enduring rhythms of life and death, all observed through the lens of a sensitive, receptive heart. Imagine a quiet evening by a flickering oil lamp, the shadows dancing softly on the walls, and the feeling of warmth and safety. These are the moments that truly shape us, not with drama, but with enduring peace. Allow yourself to feel that gentle peace now, letting the distant echoes of Homer's quiet childhood guide you deeper into slumber. As the soft impressions of childhood begin to recede, we move into a slightly wider view, a world that began to unfold for Homer with a gentle, unhurried pace. Imagine the gradual expansion of awareness, not with a sudden burst of understanding, but like the slow lifting of a morning mist revealing the landscape beneath. You might feel the subtle shift from the confines of early childhood to a broader engagement with the everyday rhythms of ancient life. It wasn't a world of grand cities or bustling marketplaces for him, not yet, but rather a more intimate sphere, perhaps a small community nestled near the coast or in a fertile valley. The sounds would have been those of a settled existence. The quiet hum of conversation from nearby homes, the rhythmic clack of a weaver's loom, or the distant lowing of cattle returning at dusk. These were not intrusive noises, but rather a constant, comforting backdrop, a gentle reassurance of the ongoing flow of life. You might perceive the faint scent of wood smoke mingling with the salt air if he lived near the sea, or the sweet fragrance of ripening fruit in an orchard. These sensory details weren't just fleeting moments. They were absorbed quietly and deeply, becoming part of the rich internal landscape that would one day inform his timeless stories. Think of the feeling of being present in such a setting, simply observing, without the need to analyze or categorize, in this unfolding world. Relationships began to take on a quiet significance. Not dramatic friendships or intense rivalries, but the steady, unspoken bonds of family and community. You might envision the shared meals, the silent understanding passed between generations, the gentle guidance from elders. These interactions were likely steeped in tradition, in the unhurried passing down of knowledge and wisdom through observation and patient example. There was a respect for the natural order of things, for the wisdom accumulated over time, and a quiet acceptance of one's place within the larger tapestry of life. Imagine the comforting presence of familiar faces, their expressions conveying a depth of understanding beyond words. The days were marked not by rigid schedules, but by the natural progression of tasks, planting and harvesting, tending to animals, preparing food, and repairing tools. Each activity had its own rhythm, its own quiet satisfaction. You might feel the gentle pull of the earth in the hands of someone tilling a small plot, or the steady focus required for a craftsperson shaping clay. These were not chores to be rushed through, but vital parts of existence, connecting the individual directly to the source of their sustenance and well-being. This intimate connection to the land and its cycles would have instilled a profound appreciation for the forces that shape human destiny, an understanding that goes beyond intellectual comprehension and settles deep in the bones. This period of quiet observation and gentle growth was essential. It was a time when the nuances of human emotion, the subtle interplay of light and shadow in everyday life, and the enduring power of simple human connections were absorbed without conscious effort. It was a time for listening, not just to sounds, but to the whispers of life itself, to the untold stories held within the hearts of ordinary people. You might feel a gentle sense of peace settling over you as you imagine this quiet world, a world where the greatest lessons were learned not through grand adventures, but through the patient, empathetic observation of the human condition. Let this gentle unfolding of time lead you further into a restful state. As the world around Homer gently expanded, so too did his capacity for quiet observation. Imagine him not as an active participant in grand dramas, but as a silent witness, absorbing the myriad nuances of daily existence. You might feel the stillness of an afternoon, perhaps a gentle breeze stirring the leaves, as he sat and simply watched. His lessons came not from formal schooling, but from the unwritten curriculum of life itself, the subtle shifts in people's expressions, the unspoken stories in their movements, the quiet dignity of labor, and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. Picture him perhaps by a communal well, observing the women gathering water, their conversations a soft murmur, their gestures graceful and practiced. He wouldn't be listening for dramatic pronouncements, but for the rhythm of their exchanges, the small acts of kindness, the fleeting moments of shared laughter or quiet solace. You might notice the way light falls on a worn face, or the quiet patience in the eyes of an elder. These were the details that mattered, the small brushstrokes that painted a vivid picture of human life, devoid of pretense or exaggeration. This deep, empathetic looking, without judgment or haste, allowed him to see beyond the surface, into the heart of what it means to be human. Even in moments of shared activity, his presence would have been that of an observer. Perhaps during a simple village festival, where the music was soft and the dancing gentle, he might have watched the flow of bodies, the quiet joy on faces, the subtle expressions of community and connection. He wouldn't have been caught up in the boisterousness, but rather in the underlying currents of human emotion that animated the scene. Think of how a quiet observer can often see more, hear more, feel more deeply, precisely because they are not actively participating in the fray. There's a certain peace in this detachment, a clarity that allows for profound understanding. The natural world, too, was a constant source of quiet lessons. He might have spent hours simply watching the flight of birds, the patient growth of a vine, or the relentless, rhythmic ebb and flow of the tides. These weren't just pretty sights. They were metaphors, parables unfolding before his eyes, revealing the grander patterns of existence. The cycles of nature, both growth, decay, and renewal, would have been absorbed into his consciousness, not as scientific facts, but as intuitive truths about the transient beauty and enduring spirit of life. You might feel a similar sense of connection to these natural rhythms now, a soothing reminder of the world's steady pulse. This period of quiet observation was crucial for the development of his unique genius. It was here, in these silent hours of watching and internalizing, that the vast tapestry of human experience began to weave itself into the fabric of his mind. The emotions he would later portray, longing, loyalty, courage, were not abstract concepts, but deeply felt understandings born from seeing them in the quiet, everyday lives around him. He learned to listen to the whispers of the human heart, to feel the silent weight of unexpressed feelings. Allow yourself to gently drift with these quiet observations, letting the subtle beauty of life's simple moments lull you deeper into peace. As the quiet observations deepened, a new sensitivity began to stir within Homer, an intuitive understanding of the rhythms of story. Imagine not a conscious decision, but a gentle awakening to the way life itself unfolds like a narrative, with beginnings, quiet journeys, and gentle conclusions. You might feel a soft resonance with the idea that every sunset hints at a new dawn. Every quiet moment of reflection builds towards a deeper understanding. just as a story builds through its unhurried unfolding. Think of the way an elder in the community might recount tales by a flickering fire. Their voice a soft murmur, the words painting pictures in the mind without ever raising above a gentle conversational tone. These weren't grand theatrical performances, but intimate of wisdom, memory, and shared history. Homer would have absorbed not just the content of these stories, the adventures, the sorrows, the triumphs, but also their very structure. He would have sensed the patient pacing, the way details were woven in gently, the subtle emphasis on emotion and human connection rather than dramatic action. You might perceive the comforting predictability of such storytelling, a pattern that soothes the mind and allows it to drift. It was in these moments that he likely began to understand the profound power of language, not as a tool for argument or instruction, but as a vessel for empathy and shared human experience. The words themselves would have felt like gentle currents, carrying listeners along without force or urgency. Imagine the feeling of being completely absorbed in a tale, not because of suspense or excitement, but because the voice and the narrative itself are so comforting, so deeply familiar, that they become a part of your own inner landscape. This gentle immersion in story became an intrinsic part of his being. The tales he heard might have been about ancestral heroes, about the ancient gods, or simply about the daily lives of people from generations past. But, in Homer's mind, these weren't just facts to be remembered. They were emotional landscapes to be explored, gentle currents of human feeling to be navigated. He would have felt the quiet sorrow of loss, the enduring hope of return, the deep loyalty of bonds. These emotions, experienced vicariously through the stories, enriched his own understanding of the human heart, allowing him to perceive its quiet struggles and its resilient strengths. You might feel a similar gentle stirring of empathy as you consider these timeless human experiences. This embracing of story's rhythm wasn't about crafting epics yet. It was about internalizing the very essence of narrative as a way of understanding the world. It was a time of quiet apprenticeship, where the loom of language was prepared, and the threads of human experience were patiently gathered. He was learning to listen to the whispers of the past, to the unspoken truths of the present, and to the faint echoes of the future. Allow this gentle, rhythmic flow of storytelling to carry you further into a peaceful surrender, a quiet descent into rest. As Homer's understanding of story deepened, so too did his quiet appreciation for the weight of words, not as burdens, but as precious vessels. Imagine him sensing the subtle power held within each syllable, the way a carefully chosen word could evoke a feeling, paint a scene, or bridge the gap between hearts. You might feel the gentle resonance of this idea, the notion that language, when used with intention and empathy, carries a profound, yet soft, significance. He would have become acutely aware of the nuances of oral tradition, of how tales were not simply recited but performed with a gentle rhythm, a steady cadence that allowed the listener's mind to drift and absorb. Think of the way a skilled storyteller uses pauses, not for dramatic effect, but to allow a moment to breathe, to let an image settle in the listener's imagination. It's a rhythm that lulls, that invites contemplation rather than demanding attention. This wasn't about flashy rhetoric, but about the quiet artistry of conveying deep truths through simple, enduring phrases. You might perceive the comforting, almost hypnotic quality of such a voice, carrying you along effortlessly. In this phase, Homer was not yet a creator of grand epics, but a careful collector of linguistic treasures. He would have absorbed the rich vocabulary of his time, the evocative metaphors, the gentle turns of phrase that captured the essence of human experience. These weren't intellectual exercises, but an intuitive gathering of tools, like a craftsman patiently selecting the finest wood for a cherished project. Every word, every idiom, carried a history, a faint echo of generations before him, and he would have felt that connection deeply, reverently. Imagine the quiet satisfaction of finding just the right word, the one that perfectly encapsulates a feeling without needing further explanation. He would have learned that true impact lies not in loudness, but in resonance. A softly spoken truth can reverberate more profoundly than a shouted declaration. The emotions he sought to convey were not to be dramatized, but gently illuminated, allowing the listener to feel them within their own heart. Think of the quiet power of a shared glance, a subtle sigh, or a gentle touch. These convey volumes without a single uttered word, and in Homer's understanding, language could achieve a similar depth of subtle communication. This quiet artistry of suggestion, of allowing the listener to fill in the spaces, is central to the soothing power of his eventual work. This time was one of quiet internal preparation, a slow shaping of the mind and spirit to become a conduit for timeless stories. The words he would eventually weave together were being gathered now, carefully, patiently, like threads for a magnificent tapestry. He was learning to carry their weight with grace, to let them flow like a gentle stream, guiding, never forcing. Allow this understanding of the soft, enduring power of words to settle over you, guiding you gently into a deeper, more peaceful state of rest. As Homer's internal landscape grew richer with observations and an understanding of language, his journeys began to turn inward rather than outward. Imagine him finding profound landscapes within his own mind, vast and rich with the echoes of stories and human experience. You might feel a gentle sense of this shift, a turning away from the external world's clamor to find a deeper, more resonant world within oneself. Unlike the heroes of his future epics, who embarked on epic voyages across seas and lands, Homer's most significant explorations would have been confined to the quiet chambers of his own consciousness. He didn't need to sail to distant shores to encounter the depths of despair or the heights of joy. He found them reflected in the subtle nuances of the human heart, gleaned from years of empathetic observation. Think of how a quiet room can become a universe when one's thoughts are allowed to wander freely, to connect seemingly disparate ideas into a coherent whole. This internal wandering was his true odyssey. These inner journeys weren't about dramatic revelations or sudden epiphanies. Instead, they were slow, meditative explorations of themes that resonated through generations. The enduring nature of love, the silent ache of separation, the quiet dignity of perseverance, the subtle complexities of fate. He would have turned these ideas over and over in his mind, like smooth ancient stones, feeling their weight and texture, understanding their myriad facets from every quiet angle. You might perceive the comforting predictability of these timeless themes, a reassurance that certain human experiences are universal. His solitude, far from being a lonely state, was a fertile ground for creativity. In the quietude, the voices of the past, the faint murmurs of myth, and the unspoken emotions of those he had observed could coalesce and take form. It was in these peaceful, undisturbed moments that the threads of countless smaller narratives began to weave into the grander tapestry that would become his legacy. Imagine the quiet satisfaction of such deep contemplation, where time seems to slow down and insights emerge naturally, like dew settling on a leaf. This profound inward turning allowed him to craft stories that felt universal, precisely because they were born not from specific events in his own life, but from a deep, empathetic understanding of the collective human soul. He transcended the individual to touch the core of shared human experience, creating narratives that would resonate across cultures and centuries. Allow yourself to be carried by the gentle current of this internal journey, finding your own quiet spaces within as you drift further into a state of profound rest. As Homer's inner journeys deepened, he began to perceive the intricate way memory and myth intertwined, forming the very fabric of human understanding. Imagine a gentle, hazy landscape where personal recollections softly blend with the grand, timeless narratives passed down through generations. You might feel the comforting sensation of ancient stories gently folding into your own sense of being, blurring the lines between what was lived and what was dreamed. He would have understood that people didn't just remember events, they remembered them through the lens of stories. A quiet triumph became a tale of courage, a gentle sorrow transformed into a song of lament. This wasn't about distorting truth, but about giving form and meaning to the ephemeral nature of human experience. Think of how a shared family story, repeated over years, takes on a soft glow, its edges smoothed by countless retellings, becoming less about exact facts and more about shared feeling and collective identity. This gentle shaping of memory into myth was an art he instinctively understood. The ancient myths themselves, the tales of gods and heroes, were not just fantastical narratives for him. They were profound repositories of human wisdom, allegories for the quiet struggles and enduring virtues of mortal life. He would have seen the divine figures as reflections of human emotions writ large, the gentle jealousy of a goddess, the quiet determination of a hero, the deep longing for home. These grand tales, when viewed through Homer's empathetic lens, became relatable, accessible, imbued with a soft humanity that made them resonate deeply with ordinary people. You might perceive the comforting familiarity of these archetypal figures, their struggles echoing our own quiet challenges. His work became a gentle act of weaving these threads together, the humble, everyday experiences he observed, the personal memories that stirred within him, and the vast, shimmering tapestry of inherited myth. He didn't force them into a rigid structure. Instead, he allowed them to intertwine organically, like vines, growing together, each supporting and enriching the other. The result was a narrative that felt both deeply personal and universally timeless. A story that spoke to the quiet corners of the individual heart while echoing across the vast expanse of human history. This sensitivity to the fabric of memory and myth was central to his enduring legacy. He understood that humans seek not just facts, but meaning, not just events, but emotional resonance. And he provided that meaning with a gentle hand, inviting listeners to find their own reflections within the ancient tales. Allow this gentle mingling of past and present, of memory and myth, to wash over you now, guiding you further into a state of profound rest and quiet contemplation. As Homer deepened his connection to memory and myth, his life likely became characterized by a solitary path, gently trodden. Imagine him moving through the world with a quiet presence, not aloof, but deeply internalized. You might feel a gentle kinship with the idea of finding profound meaning and rich companionship not in constant external interaction, but within the vastness of one's own thoughtful contemplation. This solitude was not born of loneliness, but of a natural inclination towards quiet reflection. In a world that moved at a slower pace, where the clamor of constant demands was less prevalent, such a contemplative existence was not an anomaly, but a respected way of being. He would have found solace in the quiet hours of observation, in the long stretches of silent internal processing where ideas could slowly germinate and take root, like seeds patiently waiting to sprout in fertile ground. Think of the peaceful solitude of walking through a quiet field at dusk. The only sounds, the rustling of leaves and your own soft footsteps. His path was gently trodden because it was guided by intuition and feeling, not by external ambition or societal pressure. There was no frantic rush to publish, no anxious desire for immediate recognition. His creative process would have been an organic one, unfolding at its own deliberate pace, much like the slow, steady growth of an ancient tree. Each word chosen, each line crafted, would have been a gentle placement, contributing to a larger, unhurried design. You might perceive the comforting absence of urgency, a sense that all things will unfold as they are meant to, in their own time. The insights he gained were often born in these moments of quiet introspection. The true nature of courage, the quiet sorrow of loss, the enduring strength of the human spirit. These weren't concepts he merely thought about, but emotions he deeply felt and understood through prolonged, empathetic contemplation. His inner world became his richest resource, a wellspring of profound understanding that needed no external validation. Imagine the clarity that can arise when the mind is allowed to quiet itself, to simply be with a thought or a feeling. This gentle, solitary path allowed him the space and time to truly listen, not just to the sounds of the world, but to the whispers of his own soul, and to the faint, timeless echoes of human experience across generations. It was a path of deep listening and profound absorption, preparing him to become the quiet voice through whom ancient stories could be reimagined and shared. Allow yourself to embrace this gentle solitude now, letting its peaceful depth guide you ever deeper into a calm and restful sleep. As Homer continued along his gentle, solitary path, he would have become acutely attuned to the unseen currents of inspiration, those subtle stirrings that breathe life into thought and give form to feeling. Imagine these currents not as grand, dramatic surges, but as quiet, pervasive influences, much like the unseen flow of a deep river beneath a calm surface. You might feel a gentle sense of this pervasive energy, a quiet wellspring from which creativity softly emerges. This inspiration wasn't a sudden flash, but a gradual accumulation, a slow coalescing of all his quiet observations, his deep empathy, and his profound understanding of memory and myth. It was as if the threads he had been gathering in earlier chapters were now, almost imperceptibly, beginning to weave themselves together. Think of the way mist gathers in a valley at dawn, slowly thickening until it becomes a visible, ethereal presence. His genius lay in his ability to patiently wait for this gentle gathering, rather than forcing it. The influence of the natural world, absorbed over countless quiet hours, would have permeated his creative spirit. The vastness of the sea, with its rhythmic whispers and enduring mysteries. The silent strength of the mountains, the delicate beauty of a single flower. These weren't just external phenomena. They became internal metaphors, shaping the language. An imagery that would flow through his mind. You might perceive the comforting, timeless quality of these natural elements. Their presence a gentle reassurance. Furthermore, the voices of the past would have been a constant, gentle current. The unrecorded songs of bards, the whispered legends around ancient hearths, the collective memory of a people. These weren't simply data points to be organized. They were living echoes, stirring within him, seeking expression. Homer became a quiet vessel through which these ancient, unseen currents could flow into a new, coherent form. His inspiration was deeply rooted in this reverence for what had come before, a respectful continuation rather than a radical departure. This period was one of profound internal gestation, where the immense scope of his future work was silently taking shape. It was a time when the seemingly disparate elements of human experience and divine narrative began to align, not through conscious effort, but through the patient, organic process of creative absorption. He allowed himself to be guided by these unseen currents, trusting their gentle pull. Allow yourself to feel that same gentle pull now, as you drift further into the peaceful depths of your own rest. As the unseen currents of inspiration flowed, Homer began the gentle work of weaving the tapestries of time. Imagine him, not at a literal loom, but in the quiet chambers of his mind, carefully interlacing the threads of human experience, myth, and memory into cohesive narratives. You might feel a soft admiration for this painstaking, yet profoundly serene, act of creation. This weaving was an unhurried process, guided by an inner rhythm, much like the patient work of a master artisan. He wouldn't have rushed the verses, nor forced the stories into existence. Instead, each line, each image, each character would have emerged organically, shaped by contemplation and a deep understanding of the emotional landscape he sought to depict. Think of the deliberate, rhythmic movement of hands, crafting something beautiful, each stitch a gentle addition to a growing masterpiece. This slow, deliberate creation imbues his work with a timeless quality, a sense of having been carefully considered and perfectly placed. The tapestries of time he wove were not just chronological accounts. They were emotional landscapes. The Trojan War, for instance, was not merely a sequence of battles, but a profound exploration of grief, honor, and the quiet dignity of sacrifice. The journey of Odysseus was not just a series of adventures, but a deeply felt meditation on longing, perseverance, and the enduring pull of home. He illuminated the universal human condition with a gentle, empathetic hand, allowing listeners to recognize their own quiet struggles and triumphs within the grand narratives. You might perceive the comforting reassurance that human emotions, in all their complexity, are eternally understood. In this intricate weaving, Homer understood the power of repetition and cadence, not for redundancy, but for emphasis and soothing rhythm. Like the gentle lapping of waves on a shore, certain phrases or themes would return, creating a comforting familiarity, guiding the listener deeper into the story's embrace. This rhythmic quality is what makes his epics so uniquely suited for quiet contemplation, for listening that allows the mind to wander and absorb rather than needing to focus intently. Imagine the hypnotic effect of such rhythmic storytelling, lulling the mind into a state of receptive calm. This act of weaving was a testament to his profound patience and his gentle dedication to his craft. He was not just recounting stories, he was creating an enduring legacy, a comfortable space for generations to find reflection and solace. Allow yourself to be enveloped by the soft flow of this creative process, feeling the gentle threads of ancient wisdom being woven into a comforting narrative, guiding you peacefully toward deeper rest. As Homer continued to weave, his creative process unfolded with a gentle arc, a slow and deliberate progression towards completion. Imagine this not as a strenuous climb to a peak, but as the quiet, inevitable swelling of a tide steadily reaching its full measure. You might feel the soothing rhythm of a task undertaken with patience and deep satisfaction. each step a natural extension of the one before. This arc of creation was marked by deep immersion, a state where the boundaries between the creator and the created softly blurred. He would have lived within the stories, walked alongside the characters, and felt the ancient emotions as if they were his own. This wasn't a draining experience, but a profound, almost meditative, engagement that allowed the narratives to flow through him, rather than being forced out. Think of the peaceful absorption you feel when truly lost in a quiet activity, where time seems to expand and external distractions fade away. The challenges he faced in his composition would have been met with quiet perseverance, not frustrated struggle. Perhaps a line didn't quite capture the subtle shade of a feeling, or a scene needed a gentler transition. These weren't obstacles to be overcome with brute force, but delicate puzzles to be solved with patient contemplation, allowing the solution to emerge organically. There was a trust in the process, an understanding that with quiet persistence, the right words, the right images, would eventually present themselves. You might perceive the comforting absence of anxiety, a belief in the natural unfolding of solutions. His ultimate goal was not grand spectacle, but enduring resonance. He sought to create something that would gently echo through the ages, touching hearts and minds with its timeless truths. This meant ensuring that every passage, every character, every emotional beat carried a quiet authenticity, a gentle weight that would linger long after the words were heard. He wasn't aiming for fleeting entertainment, but for profound, lasting comfort and understanding. Imagine a melody that, once heard, stays with you, not because it's loud, but because it's deeply beautiful and true. This gentle arc of creation culminated in works that, even millennia later, continue to cradle us in their wisdom and beauty. They are testaments to the power of a mind attuned to the quiet rhythms of existence, a spirit dedicated to crafting solace and meaning. Allow yourself to feel the serene completion of this creative journey, letting its peaceful essence guide you into an even deeper, more tranquil state of rest. As the gentle arc of creation settled, Homer's own life would have moved towards its own gathering dusk. Imagine the quiet satisfaction that comes after a long, meaningful endeavor, a sense of gentle completion rather than abrupt ending. You might feel a soft, reflective peace, like the quiet beauty of a day fading into twilight, where shadows lengthen but a gentle light still lingers in these later years. His focus would have likely shifted even more profoundly inward. The world might have continued its bustling rhythms around him, but he would have been listening to the fainter echoes of his own stories, now living beyond him in the memories and voices of others. He might have heard his tales recited by others, perhaps in a quiet village square or by a flickering fire, and felt a profound, yet humble, sense of his work taking on a life of its own. This wasn't about seeking accolades, but about witnessing the quiet, organic spread of narratives that had emerged from his spirit. The passage of time itself would have been a constant, gentle companion. He would have observed the cycles of nature, continuing, the generations gently succeeding one another, and understood that his stories were now part of that larger, continuous flow. There was no struggle against inevitability, but a serene acceptance of the natural order of things. Think of the peaceful wisdom that often comes with age, a quiet understanding that life is a vast interconnected tapestry, and each thread, no matter how small, contributes to its enduring beauty. His thoughts might have often returned to the quiet moments of observation that had fueled his creativity. The way light played on water, the subtle expressions on a human face, the enduring strength found in quiet dignity. These simple, profound truths which had been the wellspring of his work, would have continued to offer solace and understanding. You might perceive the comforting reassurance that true wisdom often resides in the quiet, unchanging aspects of life, those gentle constants that remain through all seasons. The echoes of this period were not just the stories themselves, but the whispers of understanding and connection they fostered in the hearts of those who heard them. Homer's legacy was built not on grand monuments, but on the enduring power of empathy and shared human experience, gently conveyed. Allow yourself to be carried by these soft echoes now, drifting further into the profound peace of a quiet and well-lived life as the world outside softens into its own deep rest. As the dusk gathered more deeply around Homer, he would have entered the enduring silence of legacy. Imagine a profound quietude, not of emptiness, but of deep resonance, where the echoes of a life's work continue to reverberate long after the physical presence has faded. You might feel a gentle sense of timelessness, the understanding that true influence often settles softly, quietly, shaping the world without clamor or fanfare. This silence was a testament to the power of his gentle approach. His stories were not shouted into the wind. They were whispered into the human heart, and there they took root, growing organically from one generation to the next. The absence of a precise biography, the mystery surrounding his very existence, only deepened this silent legacy. It allowed his work to stand on its own, unburdened by the specific details of a singular life, becoming a universal voice. Think of how a gentle melody, once heard, can reside within you, softly surfacing in moments of quiet reflection. The impact of his narratives was not about immediate action or revolution, but about a subtle, continuous shaping of human understanding. Through his quiet portrayals of human suffering, resilience, and longing, he fostered empathy across countless individuals. He taught the quiet dignity of perseverance, the subtle complexities of choice, and the enduring comfort of shared human bonds. This wasn't instruction, but a gentle invitation to feel, to reflect, to understand more deeply. You might perceive the profound reassurance that comes from knowing you are part of a larger, shared human story. His legacy was one of unassuming presence. The silence was not an absence, but a deep, pervasive calm that allowed his wisdom to permeate cultures and eras. It's the quiet strength of foundations, the unseen roots that sustain magnificent trees. Homer's contribution wasn't in creating fleeting excitement, but in providing a steady, comforting anchor for the human spirit across millennia. Imagine the quiet satisfaction of knowing your gentle touch has, over centuries, provided solace to countless souls. In this enduring silence, Homer continues to speak, not with a loud voice, but with the gentle, persistent murmur of timeless truth. His work reminds us that the most profound impacts are often the quietest, the ones that touch the heart rather than merely the mind. Allow yourself to be embraced by this deep, enduring silence now, letting its peaceful resonance guide you into a state of profound and undisturbed rest. As we gently approach the very end of our journey with Homer, imagine his essence settling into a profound lullaby for the ages. This isn't an ending of cessation, but a beautiful, enduring resonance that continues to soothe and inform us, long after his physical presence faded into the mists of time. You might feel a deep sense of peace, a feeling of being cradled by the very narratives he brought into being. Consider how his stories, through countless retellings, translations, and quiet contemplation, have become a gentle, comforting presence. In the human consciousness, they are like familiar stars in a night sky, always there, always guiding, always offering a sense of perspective and continuity. The gentle rhythm of his verse, even when translated, retains a quality that encourages reflection, not urgency. Think of the soft, reassuring cadence of a mother's voice singing a child to sleep. The words less important than the feeling of warmth and security they convey. Homer's gift to us is this enduring lullaby, a reminder that even in a world often filled with clamor and demands, there is a deep, quiet wisdom to be found. His heroes, with all their struggles and triumphs, become our companions in moments of quiet reflection, their journeys echoing our own human experiences. He taught us, gently, that life's greatest dramas often unfold in the quiet corners of the heart, and that true strength lies not in thunderous acts, but in enduring resilience and quiet compassion. The legacy he leaves is not one of conquest or power, but of the unseen power of story to heal, to connect, and to bring solace. He reminds us that even when the world outside feels chaotic, there is always an inner sanctuary, a place where ancient voices can whisper wisdom and bring a sense of calm. His narratives are a testament to the idea that the most profound contributions are often those that soothe the soul and gently guide the spirit. And so, as the very last echoes of our time with Homer begin to fade, allow yourself to be fully enveloped by this deep and timeless lullaby. Let the gentle weight of ancient wisdom, the quiet flow of human emotion, and the profound peace of a story well told guide you now. Drift effortlessly, knowing that the echoes of his voice, soft and comforting, will continue to resonate long after you have found your deepest rest. Good night, sleep deeply, and may your dreams be filled with quiet wonder.